Today's webinar is entitled From Flyers to Functional Printing, the Future of Print. And our presenter is Frank Romano, Professor Emeritus of the School of Printing. Frank has spent over 40 years in the printing and publishing industries. Many know him best as the editor of the international paper Pocket Pal, or from the hundreds of articles he has written for publications from North America and Europe to the Middle East to Asia and Australia. He's the author of over 50 books, including the 10,000-term Encyclopedia of Graphic Communications with Richard Romano, the standard reference in the field. His books on Quark Express, Adobe InDesign, and PDF workflow were among the first in their fields. He has authored most of the books on digital printing as well. Frank has founded 8 publications, serving as editor or publisher for TypeWorld Electronic Publishing, which ended in its 30th year of publication, Computer Artist, Color Publishing, The Typographer, EPMP, and both the NCPA and Print RIT journals. He has consulted for major corporations, publishers, government, and other users of digital printing and publishing technologies. He wrote the first report on-demand digital printing in 1980 and ran the first conference on the subject in 1985. Although formally retired from the faculty, Frank continues to teach courses here at RIT and other universities, and he works with students on unique research projects. He lectures extensively, having addressed virtually every club, organization, group, and professional organization at one time or another. Frank is one of the industry's foremost keynote speakers, and today he will share his insights into the future of print. It's pretty exciting. And now we'll turn it over to Frank to start the presentation.
Thank you, Ron. It's pretty bad when the introduction is actually longer than the presentation. So everybody, the reason that we're doing this presentation is because I get asked so many questions about the future of print from the Wall Street Journal and Business Week. Editors and reporters are calling me all the time, and they seem to have this mindset that print is dead and that the internet has taken over everything. And I say that if you want to understand print and where print is going, you have to understand the individual products that make up print. So here's a little chart that shows the 13 primary categories. I don't have functional printing in here, because that's a new category, but these are the major categories of print products. And really what you have to do is understand each one of them in order to understand where print is going, because some of these printed products will die, they will go away, and some of them will prosper and grow. And therefore, when you then take all of them together, you then see the pluses and the minuses and can develop a scenario for where we're going into print into the future. Now, as you can see, the largest category is advertising and promotional material. I'll get into that. That's flyers and brochures and things like that. The second largest category is packaging, of course, and the third largest category is direct mail. And then it breaks down into all the others. And we're going to go through each one of the categories in agonizing detail so that you get a better idea of what's happening in print. And of course, you all have the ability to send questions as we go along. And in some cases, I will take the question immediately, and maybe in some cases, we'll wait until toward the end. But in any case, you will have an opportunity to ask any question you wish. So let's talk about books. An area dear to my heart. Having written 54 books, I love everything about books. But you have to admit that the world has changed. I was just on a cruise on a ship around the world where the average age was about 80. And because I used to wear my RIT shirt and carry my computer with me, the little old ladies on the ship thought I was tech support. And so they would come up to me to help them set up their Nooks and their Kindles. I'm not making this up. What I discovered was that on the Queen Mary 2, which has a library of over 4,000 volumes, elderly people were using electronic reading devices, which tells you that the world has changed. Now, at the same time, if you look at the statistics for 2013, books of all kinds, printed books of all kinds, were up about 22%. So at the same time that the electronic book world is growing, the print book world is growing as well. In fact, the little chart you see over on the left is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and the yellow line is printed books, and the red line is ebooks. And you can see that we have now reached the point where the number of ebooks and the number of printed books is more or less the same in terms of what's being turned out every year. Now, it'll be interesting to watch that into the future, but my feeling is it will always be some kind of a 50-50 split or something like that between the electronic world and the printed world. And the reason is that in some cases you want to save the printed book, or you want the book autographed by someone. By the way, are you going to have them autograph your Kindle? That'd be pretty messy at some point in time. Now, the little charts over there at the top are some of the books that I've had students produce because I do a class where it's 4 days, and the students have to produce a book in 4 days. We have all the technology at RIT to do that. They all complain somewhat at the beginning, but by the end, they all love the fact that they leave the class with an actual bound book that is their own. At the bottom, I have Ray Bradbury. Now, Ray died last year, and you all know that his most famous book was Fahrenheit 451, which was a book about burning books. It was about a world in the future where people were memorizing books because they were disappearing. And when he died last year, this is interesting, sales of Fahrenheit 451 quadrupled as ebooks. So it's kind of interesting that the printed version did not do as well in that particular case as the electronic version. The growth in the book industry has been in the photo book area, and that's because we all have our cell phones. We're all taking pictures all the time. How do you save them? How do you share them? Sometimes you print them out on your home printer, but in many cases you can upload them to a number of different services and have it produced as a book. In fact, I do that on a regular basis for my family because I figure they're not going to be able to see all these pictures. My mother saved all the pictures from when I was a kid, and they went into an album or into a shoebox. And we still have that. In the electronic world, I don't know what you will have in the future to share your memories with. So photo books are doing very well. Self-published books are doing very well. People who want to be an author, there are so many services out there right now that let you create a book and upload it. It can start with a cookbook. It could be the great American novel. The last book I bought from Amazon was a printed book of an out-of-print book that was in a library in Scotland. I wanted a printed copy of that book. And so that's a major market. With Google Books, you can scan through books all over the world. And if you want it, there are services that will print it on demand for you. Now, it's not like the original, but it's more or less the same content and the same format. Specialty books of various kinds, presentations, proposals. So there's a lot happening in the book world that we don't keep track of anymore. We don't really understand it because if it doesn't have an ISBN number, then there's no way anybody knows whether it's selling or not selling. And a lot of these books don't go through that kind of a system. The ISBN books are the ones everyone can track, and we know that they're up, by the way, because again, even with the few bookstores that are left in America, we still know what the sales are from those bookstores on a regular basis. So books, I think, are going to be there. There'll be changes in this world. On-demand printing has probably done more to keep books alive than any other technology. Magazines, the periodical marketplace. There are still 18,000 titles of magazines in the United States. One of my favorites is one called Garbage, a gas station attendant. It's still out there, believe it or not. There are 19 magazines in the chicken field. I don't know why. In fact, I love magazines because that's how I created my wealth. I started a magazine from scratch on my dining room table, built it up, and sold it to a big publishing company. Now, there are some magazines that are disappearing. Remember last year, Newsweek said they were stopping the print edition. They were only going to go electronic. Well, guess what? They just announced that they're getting back into a print edition. So what we're seeing is that most magazines today have limited the number of printed copies, they've limited the frequency, and they've increased the amount of content going through the website, but they still have a printed edition. Because unless you put something in front of me on a regular basis, I'm really not going to go to your website all the time. I don't sit there every day and say, oh, I want to go to the Time Magazine website. It doesn't work that way. It usually works that I have to have an incentive, and the incentive is the printed magazine. So I might read something in Time Magazine and then go to their website for either more information or follow through on something else. So magazines are doing okay, except for advertising income. This is what has affected them. It's usually a 50-50 ratio between the number of pages and the number of ads in any printed magazine. And as advertising dollars have shifted over to the electronic world, that has limited the number of pages. So magazines have gotten smaller, the trim size has been changed, and the page count has gone down. But we haven't seen too many magazines die. There's a guy from the University of Mississippi called Mr. Magazine, I love that title, who keeps track of magazines in the United States. And he still sees the printed magazine as a viable publication, but they are all augmented by the electronic side of things. Now, journals, there's a big war going on with peer-reviewed journals right now, because the companies that publish the peer-reviewed journals, which are very common to academia and science and medical, they're very expensive. Harvard University, by the way, wanted to cut a whole batch out recently. And so what's happening is many of them are trying to go electronic. And the publishing companies are trying to charge as much for the electronic edition as they charge for the printed edition. So there's a lot going on in the journal field right now. There will still be journals. I think you will still have printed journals. But again, some of that content will be electronic. Newsletters have all but disappeared, because they were there for immediacy. They could mail it first-class mail. You would get it immediately, and it had a lot to do with stock tips and special information about certain industries. Well, now I can put that on a website or do it as an email feed. Reprints and preprints, that's another reason for the printed magazine. A lot of companies want a print of the article in the magazine so they can use it for promotion. And the thing you don't see as much anymore are reply cards. Remember, you pick up a magazine and the reply card would fall out. Once I picked up a reply card and the magazine fell out, well, you don't see them anymore, because now more or less you can go to a website. QR codes, by the way, helping the magazine industry, because you can hold your cell phone in front of the QR code and it will immediately take you to the website. So the magazine marketplace, again, seen a reduction in the number of pages, seen a reduction in the frequency, but certainly has not seen a reduction in the number of magazines. And by the way, if you look on Forbes, the Forbes 500, you look for the people who have the greatest wealth in the United States, what you discover is that about a third of them made their wealth from the magazine publishing industry. So, so there's still a market there. Now, catalogs. I love the catalog marketplace. I used to review the Sears Roebuck catalog, the big one they used to send. I used to rush home at Christmas time to get home before the wish list. Remember the wish book that Sears did? Before the kids saw it in the mail. Because they would always tear pages out and put them on the refrigerator. In any case, the big catalogs are gone. By the way, the first catalog in America was not the Sears catalog. It was the Montgomery Ward catalog. Sears came second, and Sears was a very astute marketer. He made his catalog slightly smaller than Montgomery Ward, and so every home had both. And so Sears went on top, and everyone remembers Sears. No one remembers Montgomery Ward. And by the way, we talk about environmental. When the new one came out, the old Sears catalog went into the outhouse. So this was a perfect environmental system, if you think about it. And this was great, because the reason catalogs evolved was because of the postal system. You could deliver something to every home in America, every farm, because you had rural free delivery after 1900, and mail order with parcel post allows you to buy almost anything. In fact, you could buy a house through Sears. They would ship you all the parts, all the nails and screws and everything you needed, and you put the house together. I was once doing a seminar in Cincinnati, and there was a TV show showing some of the houses that were Sears houses, and they showed the beams with the code numbers on them that said, you know, put this beam next to this beam, or whatever it may be. Well, in any case, as time has gone by, the web has affected the catalog market more than anything else. At one time, I would get 60 to 100 catalogs a year through the house. I don't get that many anymore, but they are still there. They're smaller, and the objective is to get me to go to the website. It's call, click, or visit. That is, go to the website or go to the store. Now, the problem is you go to most of the stores, and they don't have everything. You have to order online if you want most of the things that are sold by many of the large catalog companies. The biggest catalog today is IKEA, of course, on a worldwide basis. It dwarfs everything else that's out there. There are consumer catalogs, business catalogs, and of course, most of them today are hybrid, where they print the covers by gravure, because they print the insides by gravure and they print the covers by offset lithography. Now they're starting to do the covers with digital so they can make them more personalized, where they had been using some inkjet in order to do that before. I don't see the catalog market going away. I see it sort of holding its own, and marketing companies are discovering that you need the incentive of the printed catalog to get people to take an action, whether it is going to the website or going to the store. Newspapers. By the way, if you do a Google search for a newsstand, what you get is a picture of the Apple newsstand or the Google newsstand. You don't get a picture of a newsstand, if you will. Now, newspapers have been the most affected by the digital world. The reason I have the picture up there of the New York Times from the day that it reported the Titanic going down and a picture of the Costa Concordia is that it took 5 days from the time the Titanic sank until anybody learned about it. The Costa Concordia hit a rock off of the coast of Italy. And I was on the Queen Mary 2 off the coast of Vietnam, having just left after giving a speech to the printing industry of Vietnam. And the captain of the Queen Mary 2 came on the loudspeaker system and said, one of our sister ships has just gone aground in Italy. And it happened like 20 minutes before. Think about that. The knowledge of this accident was worldwide within 20 minutes with satellite communication, the internet, and that picture, by the way, I immediately ran to the internet and did a search, and immediately that picture came up. So this is the world we're in. So the question is, what does a newspaper offer anymore? Local news, I get that on television. National news, I get that from cable. The news as it happens, I can get that on my cell phone, my iPad, or whatever it may be. So we've lost half of all the newspapers in America. So when people say print is dead, they're thinking more or less about newspapers because they have been the most affected by the internet and by electronic communication. Now, weeklies haven't gone down as fast, but they are going down. Again, because advertising dollars are leaving. Classified left a long time ago for eBay and Craigslist, and it's not coming back. Newspapers are trying to reinvent themselves. They're trying to be websites, but they find that people aren't as loyal to the website as they were to the printed copy. Or a new publisher takes over, and the first thing they do is they raise the newsstand price. Well, now they're pricing printed newspapers out of the market. Most people aren't going to pay that price. So there might be a short-term jump in revenue, but long-term, it really does affect the circulation base. So circulation is down. The thing that's keeping some newspapers alive are the inserts, but even there, many companies are now toying with home delivery and even mail to get inserts to every home or every location within a particular town or city. So it's a kind of a sad story when we realize how much we grew up on newspapers, but my feeling is you may still have some national newspapers and a few large city dailies, but over time, the number of newspapers will dwindle to a very low number. Now, why do we need a telephone directory? Think about this for a second. You want to find a phone number, you go to Google, you go online, it's so easy. Why do I even need a yellow pages? If I want to find a company, I can search for it. I can search for Chinese restaurants in Henrietta, New York, and the list will come up. And by the way, there'll be reviews, there'll be address, there'll be a map, there'll even be a link to the website with a menu. My little cartoon there is two archaeologists, and they're digging up a phone book, and they're saying, what is it? And the other one's saying, I have no idea. Because someday, people will ask, why did you have a phone book? And by the way, the middle picture there is a picture of a recycling site with all of the last year's phone books that are there. So right now, I think 11 states, Verizon has petitioned 11 states to do away with the white pages phone book. And it's probably going to happen because it's a regulatory thing. The reason we have the white pages is it was part of the 1934 Telecommunications Act. Yellow pages, because there's competition with multiple companies, many of them now getting into websites. Yellow pages will probably last a little bit longer, but within the next decade, phone books will be a vestigial thing. They will be part of an archaeological dig, if you will. Now, this is one of the major categories of printing. It's promotional or collateral or advertising. Call it whatever you want. you say advertising, it sounds like an ad in the magazine, and that's not what we're talking about. Let's kind of define them. Let's take a single sheet of paper, folded or unfolded, printed 1 or 2 sides. We call that a flyer. That's easy. I take a sheet of paper, maybe larger, printed 1 or 2 sides, and I fold it. That's called a folder or a brochure. That's easy. I take a whole batch of them and I nest them one inside another and I don't bind it. That's still called a brochure. I saddle stitch it, and in most cases that's called a booklet. Or I perfect bind it, and it's called a booklet. A circular can be either a brochure or a booklet. An ad insert can be either a brochure or a booklet. We call it an ad insert because we insert it in something else, like a newspaper. We call it a circular because we circulate it on the street corner. We just give it out to people. So these are the major categories of promotional material. You see it all the time. You go to a bank, there's a whole rack of brochures on loans and CD rates and mortgages and things like that. You go to any hotel, there's a rack of brochures for tours and touristy things that you want to do. You go to a trade show, you go booth by booth. What do you leave with? You leave with some printed piece. My joke is that if you go to any trade show, your job, everybody listening to this webinar, your job is to pick up a brochure at every booth. And at the end of the aisle, conveniently located, are trash receptacles where you can discard it. Because your job is to create the need for print. So all of you are part of my groupie group, and you will go to all these events and consume print, if you will. And I will be checking up on you. So can you replace all of this stuff? Can you go booth by booth and pick up a CD? Hey, I have a Mac Air. My Macintosh Air has no CD reader in it. I have a separate unit, and I don't lug that around with me. Within the next few years, CDs won't exist. We're downloading our movies, we're uploading our audio and our music. Over time, we're not going to see a big market in CDs. And even our software is coming electronically, and all the upgrades are coming electronically. The other day I was cleaning out a drawer, and I found a whole batch of AOL diskettes. I remember floppies. Remember they used to send you a floppy, tons of floppies. And then they sent you tons of CDs. You don't see any of that anymore because, again, you go online, you can download almost anything you want, especially spam and all kinds of vicious software. So this category, to me, is a major category of print, and it does not go away. In fact, it continues to grow. It was the first category to apply digital printing because as run lengths went down, the volume of print, the quantity that you were printing, was right in the sweet spot for digital printing. And that's really what generated the growth in digital printing over the last decade. And now whether you use toner or inkjet, you're generating promotional material. Yes, you could put all the information in these flyers and brochures on a website. You could send it to me by email as a PDF file. But it's not the same thing as having a printed piece. Recently, I did a video about an article I read in a local paper about kiosks replacing promotional material at tourist areas. And I thought this is the dumbest idea ever. Because if it's a brochure, it's in a rack, and I can see the things that are there and pick the ones I want. If it's a kiosk, I have to stand in front of the kiosk and go through a whole batch of things. And by the way, I'm going to need a whole batch of kiosks because I'm going to need a whole batch of people at one time, where the print in the rack, a whole batch of people can be looking at the rack at the same time. So you still need print in order to promote certain kinds of activities, whether they be sales or tourism or whatever it may be. So this, to me, is a growth area, and it's one of the things that keeps the printing industry alive. Now, one of the things I do is I travel the world, and it's pretty weird. I take pictures of mailboxes. Not many people do this, by the way. And again, because I go on ships and travel the world, I get to visit some interesting places from Budapest and Prague to the UK to Bangkok and other places. And so you notice all the different kinds of mailboxes that are out there, because we're talking about direct mail right now. Now, if you'll notice, the lower right picture, in fact, the two lower right pictures, in many European countries, right next to most mailboxes, especially home mailboxes, of course, were trash receptacles. So people would sort through their mail and throw away the ad mail, if you will, and just keep whatever they wanted and go on. So, and I liked it in New Zealand, on their home mailboxes, there would be little signs that said, "No junk mail." And I'm thinking, wait, you leave this to the post person to decide whether it's junk mail or not. That's an interesting one right there. So they determine what mail you get at that point. So in any case, the mail system, although it had its problems, and they're raising rates momentarily, they decided not to cut Saturday delivery. But direct mail is an important part of the way we promote and communicate. Not going to go away. Yes, we have lost volume in this area, mostly because a lot of the envelope mail soliciting credit cards that has gone down, and a lot of your mail for bills and statements, because many of us pay our bills and statements electronically, they have gone away. So the printed side of the world has seen some decline here, but people still need to get something to you to have you take an action. So today, the most popular form of direct mail is the postcard. And that's because it's inexpensive, although now you're seeing the very large Jagunda postcards. That's a result of like 4 postal increases ago, they allowed these larger postcards. When I was a kid, the penny postcard was a very small thing. Well, now they're gigantic. Self-mailers are the second most popular form of direct mail. It could be almost any size, but then folded so it can be mailed. And then the new postal regulations require tabbing all over the place. So it's kind of limited, that world, but it's still growing. Booklets are the third largest, and then envelope mail comes after that. Mail is still there. People depend on mail for lots of reasons. Again, even though they keep trying to force us into the electronic world, you still need print from time to time. And that's going to be the reason that direct mail will exist. It also is a reason to get me to take an action. By the way, I can't imagine why, but people have my birth date, and I get more mail nowadays, saying I should go to this restaurant on my birthday or buy this gift on my birthday, whatever it may be. So that's interesting, by the way. So the day I die, I will still have some restaurant in Malden, Massachusetts, sending me a birthday greeting, which is very interesting. So direct mail will still be there. We've seen a reduction, but my feeling is going to come back up when people realize that you really need to give people an incentive in order to take an action, that is to go to a website. Now, TechDoc, if you remember, with every software package, you got a software manual, an operating manual. With every computer, you got an operating manual. In fact, the thing that made the Xerox Docutech, if you go back in time to when it was introduced in 1990, its major market was producing manuals. And it was just perfect for that, because it had the online collation and binding. Since then, most of these manuals have gone away. They're either large PDF files or they're help files built into the software. Adobe used to ship all their software, there was a bunch of CD-ROMs, and it came in a big box as though there was still a manual in it. Well, there was no manual in it at all. Now they don't even ship the box because it's all online. So manuals, guides, tech bulletins, more or less that whole marketplace has gone away. What you still find are those little white sheets that come with almost every appliance or electronic gadget. They're in 6 languages. I remember I was reading Spanish until I realized it wasn't English. Because they don't put them in any particular order, so you have to figure out where the English is. And then I don't know what language they wrote it in originally, but they translated back into English, so following it is not easy. But that's still the market, if you will. It's the little instruction sheets that you get with all of your appliances or whatever. I have a friend who told me that they bought an appliance and they got a sheet that said, if you want the instruction manual, go to this website. So I thought, that's awfully cheeky, that everyone who bought an appliance like that would have access to the internet. Well, I guess that assumption is probably true, but if you think about it, that could be the case, that someday if you want the manual, you go to the website and you print it out yourself. So you use your home printer and your home expensive inkjet ink in order to do that. So this marketplace, again, is one of those marketplaces that has been reduced and probably will disappear over time. Legal financial. Now, those of you in the printing business will remember that in the spring of almost every year, you could not get anything printed in the United States because annual reports were being printed. Because again, the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, required that all public companies had to publish an annual report to their stockholders. Companies would use it as a promotion piece. So it would be color, it would be graphics. I remember the prepress on the IBM annual report alone was $1 million. Paul Rand was the designer, and he used embossing and die cutting. It was 3 different kinds of paper. He used 9 spot colors. It was the most gorgeous thing you have ever seen, but it cost a fortune. Well, over time, as the SEC implemented EDGAR, the electronic reporting system, you could file and had to file your annual report, your 10K, and your quarterly reports electronically. When that happened, a lot of companies opted out of doing a printed annual report. They might design one and put a PDF version of it on the website, but they didn't print one. I'll never forget, a few years ago, the Intel annual report, in the president's message, in the very front of the annual report, President of Intel said, "We would prefer that you download the PDF version so we can save on printing." So little by little, the annual report marketplace dwindled to a very low number. Now in this category, I've also got transactional printing, that's bills and statements, and trans-promo, which is the term they use for bills and statements that are in color. Those marketplaces are still there, and because of the introduction of color, even though you might do electronic banking or electronic statements, probably a few times a year you get a printed version every now and then, and the thing is, they'll put a little notice in it, we're mailing this to you for you to verify all the information, to check the content, to make sure for security reasons we have everything correct. But it's just an excuse because what they're doing now is they're selling advertising on statements or inserting inserts for advertising in the envelope. So transactional and trans-promo still have a life because they realize the one thing you don't throw away is your gas bill, your electric bill, your bank statement. You open it, and even if that little insert falls out or the ad is part of the statement, even if you're not concerned, you still see it. You still react to it in some way, shape, or form, and that's what they're counting on. So that's why that marketplace is going to grow. Legal reports still around. Although I do a lot of legal testimony work, almost all of it today is based on electronic communication, PDF files. But when you go to the trial, they have tons of paper there. IPOs, public offerings, still they do those booklets in print. And then there are other legal and financial materials that also have to be in print because your mortgage has to be in print. You sign it. Your deed is in print. The legal documents that define your life. Try to get your, an initial passport without a birth certificate. Go there and show them a PDF of it. I'm sorry, that will not work. So there's still a lot of need for printed materials that verify who you are and what you do. Remember the days when you had a desk drawer full of paper that had one word on it. That word was memo. And you would put it in your typewriter. Some of you will remember a typewriter. And you would type out a memo to someone. Well, you don't do that anymore, do you? You open up your browser and you do email. And you hit send and it's gone. And you can put as many people on there as possible. I remember using carbon paper, and the more people that were on the list, the last person would get a gray blur as a sheet of paper. So today, most of our communication in an office is really by email on our intranet. Yes, there are still reports that are printed, but most people pass around PDFs and Word files and Excel files. Even though we do our PowerPoint presentations, most people print them out so they can make notes on them. There are still some printed forms, although a lot of forms today. The other day I was doing a new course proposal here at RIT, and I asked the wonderful person who handles that area for the form to fill out. She said, I'll send it to you in electronic form. You fill it out electronically. I said, wow, RIT has entered the new age. So again, a lot of forms today are electronic. Announcements, by the way, yes, in many cases you mail out a piece of paper, but in most cases it's email that we're getting. So email has really replaced most of the communication we do in offices. Now, I call this category stationery. You can call it whatever you want. Invitations are here. People still mail out invitations, although I got an e-vite the other day to my granddaughter's birthday. I say, you know, I'm a grandparent. Don't I deserve a printed invitation? But I'll tell you where the money is in this category. Birthday packages or party packages. So Lucy is going on 8, and I know when I get to her birthday, there'll be a banner in the house that'll say happy birthday, and with a big 8, Lucy. There'll be little cups and paper dishes, and they'll have Dora the Explorer on them. There will be little brochures of various kinds. All of this stuff will be subsidized by the biggest suckers on earth, known as grandparents. This is where the money is, because we will spend any amount of money on our grandchildren. So if you're in the printing business, wide format inkjet, the ability to print on weird shaped materials gets you into this marketplace. Business cards growing exponentially. Why? Because we change jobs, we change titles on a regular basis. Your business changes, your company color changes, your logo changes. It's a phenomenal business, and of course you can buy them online, you know, for $10. I remember the days many years ago. I owned a little print shop, and I would spend 2 hours with somebody on a $24 business card job. I was like, this is ridiculous. But the world we're in today, you can do it very quickly. They're printed by digital, and you can get them virtually overnight. So you don't see engraved stationery as much anymore. You don't see engraved envelopes anymore, but you still see business cards on a regular basis. Now, of course, the major market for print, the one that will never go away, is packaging. Now, most people don't realize this, but paper was invented not to print on. It was invented to hold things. The Chinese invented paper so they could put things in it like seeds and then wrap it and hold it. It was a holding mechanism, if you will. Later on, someone figured they could put images on it as well. Well, the packaging market is growing by leaps and bounds, mainly because of the number of brands. When I was a kid, it was Coke. Remember? Coke. Now, there are like 30 versions of Coke. Vanilla Coke, Cherry Vanilla Coke, Diet Cherry Vanilla Coke. Eventually, they'll have Frank's Cherry Vanilla Diet Coke, if you will. So, with all those new brands, you need new packaging, you need new labels. It's just amazing how the market has changed. So the label market, the tag market is growing. Labels, of course, mainly because of the growth of bottled water. When I was a kid, who would have thought that bottled water would be a major market? You wanted water, you went to the sink and you drank water. Doesn't work that way anymore. Tags are important, mostly for security reasons nowadays, in order to verify that whatever the thing is an actual specialized kind of clothing or whatever. Folding carton. Another folding carton is changing now to blends of both paper and plastic. Flexible packaging. We're moving to the point where we can actually print photographs on flexible packaging instead of spot colors using Flexo. Corrugated. A lot of the big box stores, they print right on the corrugated today. It's amazing what's happening there. Test packaging. There are some supermarkets where they have special areas just to test your reaction to different logos in different colors, to different packaging in different formats, to see how you react to it. It's very scientific in the way they design packages today. So this is a phenomenal growth marketplace, and more commercial printers are now moving into the packaging world. Now, miscellaneous is the category I created, so if you email and send a question in that says, Frank, you left out, I'm going to say it's in miscellaneous. That gets me off the hook. So greeting cards are in here. Now, by the way, I have an objection to all of you who sent me an e-greeting card this year. Stop it. I don't want them anymore. This year, I got half as many printed greeting cards at the holidays as I got in the past. Hey, I'm still popular. I still should get them. What I got were e-greeting cards, PDF files. Sorry, guys, that it may be cheaper for you, but it doesn't have the same reaction. The overall greeting cards in the U.S. are down 15% because of that. Wrapping paper is still there. The person who should be sainted is the person who invented that bag where you put the thing in it and then you put tissue paper. I love that idea. Calendars, calendar books, they're still printed. Posters, if you have high school kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this category has seen its ups and downs, but it's still there. Now, the growth in printing is coming in areas that we never dreamed of. You've got printing on textiles, printing on plastics, printing on glass, printed electronics of various kinds. The second picture on the bottom from the left, they printed the cloth on the chair to match the wallpaper. In the third one over from the left, they printed carpet to look like stone. On the last one on the right, above the RIT logo, that's not glass, that's printed plastic that looks like stained glass, although you can print on glass. So you say, wait, Frank, the printing industry, this is not the printing industry. Yes, it is the printing industry. But take the printed electronics area. When we figure out, we can print the battery, we can print the circuitry, we can print a screen. When we can print all of that, including the content, and put it on a package so your box of Wheaties sings and dances, this is going to open up phenomenal new marketplaces. And to do that, it has to be the same organization that prints the package that's printing the stuff that's going on the package. And what difference does it make whether I print on glass and sell it to someone? I print on paper and sell it to someone? What difference does the substrate make? By the way, many of us in the printing industry make a lot of money printing on plastic. That's been a growth area. So why not print on heavy plastic, or print on glass, or print on metal, or print on wood? The market's there. So you look at printed electronics, we're printing display screens. OLED is organic light-emitting diodes. The screen on your cell phone is printed. We're printing batteries. That's photovoltaics. We're printing billboards with OLED. We're printing logic and memory. And by the way, we're doing it with flexo presses, with gravure presses, and now they're starting to figure out a way to do it with digital printing of all kinds. So the question is, what is the printing industry anymore? Think of all the overlapping categories, from commercial printing to in-plant printing to quick printing to copy shop. You're all overlapping because you're all doing what everybody else does. It used to be package printers only printed packages. Well, commercial printers are printing packages. It used to be that quick printers only did small jobs. Well, now they have digital printing. They do color or complex jobs. Photo services are using inkjet. White format is the common technology among all of the categories of the printing industry. And converters in industrial printing, where you had all this specialty stuff being done, that's all now starting to migrate over to the commercial printing side. Binders and mailing services are getting into digital printing. Even newspapers are discovering, as their circulations are going down, that they're starting to come into the realm of roll-fed, high-speed inkjet at this stage of the game. So all these business sectors of the printing industry are now competing with every other business sector. So once you decide to move into these new worlds, now it's all about workflow. Getting it from the marketing side and the creative side to the business side to all the prep work that has to be done, getting into whatever the printing process, because printers are going to wind up with a multitude of printing processes, including electronic systems, and then how we're going to distribute it by shipping, by mail, by handout. And then, by the way, we have to bill it. We don't do that well enough anymore. So the key to all of this technology in terms of what's happening with products is, how do I get it from the mind of someone who wants to do it to the actual finished product in any way, shape, or form? So the new world we're in is a printing world, it's a mobile communications world, it's a social media world, it's an online world, and that's what we're in. And it's no longer print and, I'm sorry, it's not print or, it's print and, because the electronic world and the print world are going to work together as we move into the future. So I think I'm right on time at this stage of the game, and we have time for any questions that have come through.
So we've got a few questions already. The first question is, if you were just starting out, would you start a magazine today? And if so, how would the launch of the magazine different than what you did in the past with your other 8 publications?
Okay, that's a great question. In fact, I'm doing a class in April here on how to start a magazine. There's still a market for magazines, but you have to find the market. You're not going to, by the way, you're not going to do a general business magazine. That's a diminishing marketplace. What you have to do is find a niche. Remember when personal computers first came out, there was a magazine called PC for PC users. There was a magazine called Macworld for Mac users. If you had a Macintosh, you bought this magazine because it kept you informed about the Macintosh. So what you want to find is a niche where no one is communicating to this group of people. For instance, why not start a magazine for 3D printing? I don't think there is one at this stage, although someone's going to come up with that idea. Find a new technology where there's no communication in the field. All right, now then you come up with the idea. Now the next thing is, where do you find the list to promote it? That's the next big thing. It used to be you could buy a list from a magazine. They don't sell lists that much anymore. They don't want to give that away. So you have to go to list brokers and find a list that would allow you to promote, to sell circular subscriptions to whatever the publication is. Then the next question is, the third and most important question is, who will advertise in it? So if you can find a base of people who want to reach the circulation that you've defined, then you can start to sell ads. And that's where the money is, by the way. You're selling blank paper, and you're putting ink on it, and you're charging a premium for that. So, good idea, great list, find the advertisers. There are still markets for magazines. And by the way, you ready for this? Over 1,000 new magazines start every year in the United States.
Great. There's a few questions about, speaking about specifically 3D printing and how 2D and 3D printing are merging, and other questions about your thoughts on 3D printing.
Okay, now, you know, a few years ago, I was trying to create a program called Graphic Media, and the graphic design school said I couldn't use the word graphic. They own the word graphic. Well, now 3D printing is coming out, and every part of RIT is getting into 3D printing. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, guys, don't I own the word printing? so all right. In any case, because it applies to so many areas. I mean, we're doing it in the engineering school. We're doing it in the design school. Because 3D printing crosses almost every category you can imagine. Biomedical, we're going to be printing medicine, if you will. We're printing body parts. We can print skin for grafts. We can print prototypes. We can print parts. So we've now got one 3D printer in the School of Printing. We're getting a second one momentarily. And we're starting new courses in that area. And again, we're going to find our niche. It will not be overlapping many of the other areas, but try to find new things that we can do with 3D printing that tie into the industry. Because it's a growth opportunity. I don't know if you read a few months ago that the UPS stores were going to, in some of the stores, they're going to install 3D printers. They're going to give you the 3D software so you could design something and then go to the UPS store and then print it out. I mean, think about this future that's coming. They've got 3D printers so inexpensive, under $1,000, you can buy it at home and design and output toys. So there's all kinds of applications there. So 3D printing is going to be the growth marketplace, and what we have to figure out is where are the opportunities for the printing industry? Because they're not apparent at this stage. Where are we going to be able to make money in this world?
Okay. Any other questions?
I see little notes up there every now and then. I see somebody agrees with me on e-greeting cards. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I don't know who you are, Martha, but that's a nice note.
Especially Martha, who lives in Rhode Island, who you met a few years ago.
Ah, okay. It's always great, by the way, to see friends online. So we've had by the way, we've had a really nice group of people, and we've only lost 3 or 4 of you in the last hour. So that's pretty good. So most of you are either eating lunch or taking a nap at this point. So it's great to have you on. And of course, I know you're all alumni. I hope you're all doing well.
So here's a question: how robust is the relationship with print and mobile?
It's not robust. It's just growing. We don't know quite how to do it. That's part of the problem. The size of the screen, because you can't see everything easily on the screen. Getting it to different printers, of course, it has to be wireless. There's lots going on. In fact, at Adobe, one of my friends there is now really taking a lot of control over that whole area. How they're going to handle that? Once you have a PDF file, how will I get it to a large number of different printout devices that are out there? By the way, there's been a lot of activity on the iPad and on the tablets because they're a little bit more robust in what they do on the screen. But again, over time, we're going to want to print things out, and what's going to happen is you're going to go into a hotel lobby or some other place and be able to print out your boarding pass, a document that has to be signed. Again, how many cases do you go to a registry or some other place and they want you to sign something, and they give you the PDF file, or they send you the PDF file, and now your problem is getting it to a printer.
So let's take another question. Can you talk to print-on-demand, the market, and online self-publishing market?
Okay. Print-on-demand, of course, has been the growth market over the last decade. Publishers finally woke up that they did not have to print for inventory. If you order a book from Amazon and it says it's going to take 5 days or more, that book is being printed on demand for you. They don't have any inventory. That's the greatest thing ever, no inventory. And so publishers for many books are doing that. There are still some books, again, hardcover books, still printed in quantity, but at some point that book will go out of print in terms of the fact there's no inventory, but it will still then be printed on demand. So that's still a growing marketplace. More and more companies are into it. Here in Rochester, Colorcentric has really pioneered, first with the Docutech and now with color printing in almost every way that you can imagine. So that marketplace is a growth market and will continue in various ways. So all digital printing is growing at this stage of the game, and I don't see any major changes. Now, self-publishing is going to continue because everyone wants to publish their own book, their own something. And that market will always be out there in some way, shape, or form.
There's a question about print brokers and whether they still have strong positions today, or are more customers going direct to printers?
That's a great question. If you go to the Yellow Pages right now, 1/3 of all of the listings on the printing are brokers. You don't know that, by the way. You'd have to go and visit the address there and see if there's actually a printing company there, and the odds are there aren't. Who are the brokers? By the way, this is very interesting. We've lost 50% of the printers in America. They're gone. Now, they didn't just go out of business. What they did was they merged with another printer. And one of the owners, or multiple owners, of one of those plants became a broker to the company they merged with. So that's why there are so many brokers today. They're independent. They can use almost any printer. There are printing companies out there that really only deal with brokers at this stage. And there are brokers that only handle specialized printing projects of various kinds. And so I see a lot of activity in the broker community at this stage. And in fact, by the way, if you think about it, the printing services capabilities of Xerox and Kodak and HP, they all have a division that will come in and manage your print services, and they buy printing for you. So they are, in essence, print brokers. So a lot of activity in print brokerage today.
There's a question about whether it's hard for people to go from print to online versus more of a seamless interaction from email or a digital ad like on Pandora.
You're absolutely right. This is a major problem. If you create, I just taught at Cal Poly for a while. We were doing a book of mine in InDesign, and the problem was we wanted to do the print version and we wanted to do the electronic version. And I thought that the electronic version was a no-brainer. I'd seen a demo and it looked easy, but I have to tell you, once you get into it, there are lots of details you have to get into. So going back and forth from the print world to the electronic world, there's still a lot there that has to be done. Now, PDF is great, but PDF is also limited in many respects. in terms of e-books. It doesn't give you all the features you might want. And then, of course, we have the specialization, because the e-book for a Kindle is different than the e-book for a Nook, which is different than the e-book for an iPad. And that's another thing we have to solve. We need more standardization in that world.
Somebody commented, it's great to hear an enthusiastic print supporter. Is RIT offering any classes or information compilations on industrial applications, in particular about printing on textiles?
Boy, the answer is no. We should. We're trying to revive our outreach seminar programs. If you remember, many years ago, we had tons of seminars for print buyers on new technology of all kinds. That's how many of you learned about digital printing, by coming to those seminars. That marketplace went down. You know why? Webinars. So we're looking at trying to revive that, and if we do, that would be a major area to get into.
This question about, in general, what are your thoughts on marketing and printing? Traditionally, it was just printing, but now there's marketing components that extend printing.
Absolutely. And by the way, a printer is not a printer anymore. They're really an extension of your marketing department. Too many people create something and they say, just print it. Well, you should deal with the printer before you start the project, because the printer can help you then determine how you might be able to repurpose some of that information. There are some really great software packages that can take some of the print material and then repurpose it for social media, get it into email, and really extend your marketing reach significantly from one file. But if you really wait until you have a print file, it's a little bit too late. You really want to do it at the beginning of the project.
Great. We'll squeeze in the last question really quickly. Utilizing direct mail products, how valuable is retrieving data from campaigns, and is that an opportunity to upsell marketing campaigns?
The biggest problem we have today is data. Where do we get the data for variable data and marketing, and how do we save it, how do we use it? Because of so much interest in privacy and security, it's getting harder and harder to do this. Without the data, we really can't do a good job on marketing. So many companies are limited in that respect. So we really need to have more activity on how we extend marketing information into promotional campaigns.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Additional questions can be emailed to ritalum@rit.edu or tweeted to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we'll direct your questions to Frank Romano.